You don't need a plan to make your first $1,000 outside of your salary. You need one move. And you've been avoiding that one move for months now. You've just been calling it getting ready. Stay with me because I'm going to show you exactly what that move is week by week and the real reason you haven't made it yet. You've been saving videos for 6 months? You've got podcasts on rotation about building income outside your job. You have a notes app full of business ideas, a Pinterest board for your future home office, and at least one course sitting in your inbox that you haven't even finished yet. You understand the problem. You know relying on just one salary is making you and your finances very fragile. You've done everything except the one thing that actually matters. You've not made any meaningful income outside of your salary or been able to do it consistently. And before you tell me it's because you don't have enough time or the right idea or a clear enough plan, I want to offer you a different explanation. You are waiting for certainty, and certainty is not coming. The people who make their first $1,000 outside their salary did not have a better plan than you. They did not have more hours, more credentials, or more confidence. They just started before they felt ready. That's it. They made one move before the conditions were perfect. And this video is about what that move looks like, because it's not about effort. It's not about motivation. It's not even about time. The people I see stuck at zero income outside their salary are usually stuck because of 3 very specific mistakes. And the frustrating thing is that all 3 of them feel like progress while they're happening. So mistake number 1 is focusing on things that don't matter before you've made any real money. I cannot count the number of times someone has come to me saying that they've been working on their business for 3 months and have not made any money yet. Then I ask them, well, what have you been doing? And they tell me, designing a logo, a website, brainstorming their brand name, getting their Instagram grid together, researching tax strategies, basically designing the infrastructure for a business that hasn't made a single transaction. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, all of that shit's irrelevant until you've made some actual money. And I get why it happens, because building a website feels productive. Designing a logo feels like progress because it's tangible. You can see it. You can show it to people. It gives you something to point to when someone asks how the business is going. But what's real is nobody is paying you for your logo. Nobody is paying you for your brand aesthetic. And the longer you spend building the infrastructure, the longer you delay the only moment that really matters, and that's the first transaction. Your first job is not to build a business. Your first job is to make a sale. Everything else can be figured out after someone has paid you. So start making money first, then figure out the rest in that order, not the other way around. Never the other way around even. You don't need a logo, you need a buyer. You don't even need a website, you need a buyer. You don't even need social media, you need a buyer. Everything, and I mean everything you do should be getting you closer to that buyer, full stop. Mistake number 2 is starting from interest instead of expertise. People look at what is working for others online and try to replicate it. They see someone making money with a creative business and think, oh, I should do that too. They are curious about coaching, for example, so they decide to become a coach. They're interested in content creation, so they try to build a following from scratch in an industry that they know nothing about. And then they wonder why it feels so hard. It's hard because you are competing with people who have years of experience in that space while you're still figuring out the basics. You have no credibility, you have no track record, you have no network in that world. You are starting from zero in a market where other people are starting from expert. Meanwhile, you have years of professional expertise sitting completely unused. Make that make sense. Skills the market will already pay for, a track record that already exists, a network that already knows what you're capable of. And you're ignoring all of that to chase something that looks more exciting online. Why would you do that to yourself? And here's something I will say that might be controversial. Attaching money to a passion or curiosity is one of the fastest ways to kill it. Curiosity, I feel, needs space to grow without financial pressure. Passion needs room to breathe. And the moment you put your financial survival on something you love, the relationship with it changes. What was exciting now becomes stressful. What felt creative starts feeling like an obligation. I've watched it happen too many times, and I'm trying to save you from that same fate. Don't do that. Use the skills you have already acquired, the ones you're already expert at. Leverage the career capital you spent years building instead of abandoning it to start from scratch somewhere else. It's not the most glamorous advice, I know, but it works. Then mistake number 3 is waiting for certainty before acting. This one is probably the most sneakiest because it doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like being responsible. You tell yourself that you're not ready yet. You need to do more research. You need a clearer plan. You need to figure out exactly what you're going to do before you start doing it. And all of those things sound completely reasonable. One of the hardest things I had to understand when I started building income outside of my job was that the plan isn't really a plan in the traditional sense. It's not a color-coded spreadsheet with every step mapped out in advance. It's more of a self-trust plan, a commitment to figuring it out as you go and doing whatever it takes to make it work. I say this as someone who is deeply type A, someone who loves a good plan, a detailed calendar, a well-organized system. I'm all about that. And I had to face the uncomfortable truth that my planning was actually procrastination. Planning gives you that same dopamine hit as actually doing the thing. So you feel like you're making progress when you're not. It just feels good. And feeling good is not the same as moving forward. So here's the thing about certainty. It's not a starting condition. It's a destination. You don't get certain before you start. You get certain because you started. And the clarity you're waiting for does not exist on the other side of more planning. It only exists on the other side of your first transaction. And one more thing, the risk of doing nothing is not neutral. Every month you spend waiting is a month of income that you didn't make, a skill you didn't validate, a client you didn't get. Inaction has a cost. It just doesn't feel as visible as the cost of getting it wrong, because the formula of making real money outside your job is simpler than you think. It's one skill, one offer, one buyer. That's it. No funnel, no following, no website, no business structure, just those three things in that order. And once you master these things, you realize that everything else that you've been preparing for was irrelevant. So what you need is one skill or a combination of skills that sit closely together, not a laundry list of everything that you can do, just one skill or tight cluster of skills with the clearest commercial application that you can deliver consistently and confidently right now. With what you already have, no extra training, no new certification, no waiting until you feel more ready, just one skill or a small collection of skills. Then you need one offer, a specific time-bound, outcome-focused deliverable, something concrete enough that someone can say yes or no to immediately. And a lot of us confuse an offer with the general thing that we do. So for example, I will audit your hiring process and give you a written report on the 5 biggest gaps within 7 days. That's an offer. I do HR consulting is a category. And the difference matters enormously because vague offers get vague responses and specific offers get decisions. So if you cannot describe what you do in 2 sentences, it's not specific enough yet. That's the test. So once you have the offer down, you then need to get a buyer. And your first buyer is probably not a stranger. An important point here is when people typically think about your network, they think about knowing lots of people in influential places. But what I consider your network is not just the people you know, it's the people that you have proximity to. That could be a former colleague. It could be people you've worked alongside in any capacity, people you follow on social media whose work you've engaged with consistently enough that they would recognize your name. Or you could point to something very personal to them. People you follow on social media whose work you've engaged with consistently enough that they would recognize your name. My first real outside of work client came from someone I'd been following and engaging with online for years. I understood their messaging. I understood what they were trying to achieve. I could reference things that were very specific and personal to them. And that proximity created a kind of warm relationship before I ever pitch them anything. They didn't feel like a stranger when I reached out. And listen, I know you're smart and I know you've probably absorbed everything above. So if you're watching this and this is all making sense and clicking for you, you've probably absorbed all of this information and thought, yes, that makes sense, but still haven't done anything with it. And this is the psychology part. And it's probably the hardest part that nobody's honest about. Because the first barrier with all of this is being comfortable enough to approach people to give you money. And sometimes that feels uncomfortable because your first buyer might be somebody in your network, somebody that you know or have a previous relationship with. And that can feel a bit strange. It can feel like you're asking for a favor in reverse, like you're putting them in an awkward position or like you're being presumptuous. But I'll tell you something that I don't often say publicly. I'm not completely against working for someone you know for free initially if the confidence is not there, because I did it. And this is the important part. You need to negotiate charging at some stage in that relationship. free cannot be permanent, and you need to know that. And both parties need to know that going in, because when you charge someone for your expertise, you're not asking them for something, you're offering them access to a solution to a problem that they need solved. If you have identified the right skill, the right person, and they need what you have, you are not burdening them, you are helping them. Charging shouldn't be awkward. It's professional. It's literally the next natural progression of a relationship where there is mutual benefit. The second barrier is imposter syndrome around pricing in particular. So the first time you say a number out loud, maybe it's $500, $1,000, whatever it is, it's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel like, oh my God, like I can't charge that, it's too much. And I'm gonna be honest with you, right? There were many times where I looked at myself in the mirror after sending a quote and saying like, girl, you've got to be crazy. But an exercise that really helped me and has helped many of the people that I've worked with is to ask yourself, what would I charge 10 times this amount for? So if you're trying to charge $1,000, what would be the $10,000 version of that offer? Map it out. Maybe it looks like 3 weeks of your time, one-on-one, support, full deliverables, follow-ups. Then work backwards. So think about what a $5,000 version would be, and the $2,500 version, and then a $1,000 version. That exercise does two things. It helps you build parameters around what your offer actually includes, and it recalibrates your sense of what you're charging for, because you were never charging for your time. You're charging for the outcome your skill creates and the years it took you to be able to create those outcomes and those deliverables. Those years are factored into the price, whether you account for them or not. Once you are through that psychological part, the practical sequence is really straightforward. So week 1, you want to identify the one skill or the cluster of skills that you're leading with. The criteria I like to use here is simple. So where do you have the highest confidence? What has the clearest commercial outcome? And who in your existing network already has the problem that this solves? Write it down. Then week 2 is you package it into a specific offer. You name it, define the deliverable, set the price, write it in 2 sentences. And if you cannot explain it in 2 sentences, then it's not specific enough yet. Go back and narrow it down until it fits. Then week 3 is identify 3 people in your network who have the problem your offer solves. Not 100, okay, not a mass email, just 3 people. People you may already know or have a relationship with, or that you could reach out to with ease. Then in week 4, you want to deliver for whoever said yes. Get the result, get the testimonial. And that last step matters, okay, more than people realize, because the testimonial is not just social proof for later. It's evidence for yourself that the thing actually works. And that evidence is what makes the second cycle easier than the first. Now, I'm going to be real with you. Not everyone gets results in week 3. This is just the honest reality. If you reach out to 3 people and none of them convert, the sequence hasn't just failed, it just needs another cycle, and you need to keep repeating that cycle until you get the desired result. So that would involve identifying 3 more people, refining the offer if needed, and then you go again. The sequence is correct. The timing is variable. And the comforting thing about this is you don't need hundreds of leads. You just need a few conversations. And here is where the whole thing breaks down for most people. Not week 3, not the outreach, but week 1 in the identification step. I have now worked with a lot of people trying to build income outside of their 9 to 5. And the most common place that they get stuck is not the doing part, it's the seeing part. They genuinely don't know which skill to lead with. Not because they don't have valuable skills, but because they cannot see their own skills clearly from inside their current job. Because jobs describe your value in language that only makes sense inside the job. Your title flattens everything into a positional marker. Your performance reviews reduce complex outcomes into bullet points that fit inside a template. The internal language your company uses to describe your work is not the language that the open market uses to pay for it. You can be genuinely excellent at something and completely unable to articulate its commercial value because you've never been given a framework that was designed to show you what your worth is outside of those walls. Thankfully, this problem has a very practical solution, and that's why I've built the Skills to Income Blueprint specifically for this moment, and it comes in 2 parts. Firstly, you get a personalized report after you answer a set of strategic questions that map your actual career capital. So those are the skills that you use every day. And then it translates them into commercial language. It shows you which of those skills have real market value outside your employer's framework, and it identifies what your first income layer could look like based on what you already have. You come out of it with a personalized report that answers the question you keep getting stuck on at week 1, which is, which skill do I lead with? You don't need new skills. You don't need to start from scratch. You need to see what you already have clearly enough to use it. Think about it this way. If you can identify the right skill and make your first 1,000 in the hours between your job and whatever else you've got going on, How long before that becomes 10,000? How long before that becomes 100,000? The first transaction is not the destination. It's just the proof of concept that makes everything else feel possible in a way it didn't before. The Skills to Income Blueprint is where that starts, and you can find the link to that below this video. Right, you've officially run out of excuses and we've reached the end of the video. You've now got the information you need and done everything except the one thing that you need to do. At some point, consuming has got to become doing. So for the love of God, let that be now. See you in the next one.